The orbital station above Earth shimmered like a silver scar across the black of space. Lights burned along its ribs, cold and clinical, a floating fortress built by hands not of this world. Inside its echoing chambers, the Xerath Dominion soldiers stood in precise rows, their armor gleaming with the polish of conquest. They had gathered in judgment, their reptilian eyes gleaming with contempt as they studied the small delegation of humans who had come to plead their case. The Dominion was ancient, proud, and undefeated. Earth was new to the stars, barely a child among empires. General Sorak of the Dominion leaned forward, his scaled mouth twisting into a sneer. "These are your finest warriors? These humans?" His voice rumbled like stones grinding together, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. His soldiers rumbled in laughter, the sound echoing down the metallic halls. They towered at nearly 10 feet, their frames swollen with muscle, their armor powered by fusion cores. The room smelled of ozone and arrogance. Ambassador Lee of Earth kept his posture straight, though his hands trembled slightly at his side. He had expected mockery. He had prepared for disdain. But the sheer weight of the laughter pressed on him like gravity. "Our world," he began, his voice firm despite the derision, "has endured thousands of years of war, of hardship. We may lack the numbers and fleets of the Dominion, but we possess something you do not." Sorak barked a cruel laugh. "And what is that, little world? Courage? Primitive sticks?" Lee's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Adaptability." That word made the aliens pause for the briefest moment. Then the chamber roared again with scorn. A soldier in crimson plating thumped his chest and spat onto the polished floor. "Your adaptability will shatter against plasma and steel. You hide behind small forces because you cannot muster armies. You whisper of special units. To us, it is nothing more than weakness clothed in vanity." The ambassador gestured, and a single man stepped forward from the shadows behind him. Chief Petty Officer Jackson Cole was not a giant. He did not tower like the Dominion soldiers, nor wear a shining suit of powered armor. He stood in combat fatigues, boots worn from use, his rifle slung casually across his chest. His face was hidden beneath the shadow of his helmet, his expression unreadable. Where the Dominion soldiers gleamed, Cole seemed carved from shadows, his presence quiet, unyielding. "This," Lee said, "is one of our Navy SEALs. A single man trained to fight, survive, and succeed in environments where armies fail. He does not need battalions. He does not need fleets. He needs only the ground beneath him and the will to endure." The laughter that followed was uglier than before. One of the Dominion officers actually doubled over, clutching his armored stomach as he wheezed. "You name your elite warriors after sea animals? This is comedy, not war." Cole did not flinch. He did not argue or explain. His silence was its own weapon, sharp and unsettling in its stillness. The Dominion soldiers expected protest, anger, or pride. Instead, they met eyes that neither challenged nor submitted. Eyes that calculated. General Sorak's amusement finally gave way to irritation. "Very well," he said. "If you wish us to respect this soldier, let him prove himself. Not in words. In combat." Lee inclined his head. "Name the terms." The Dominion commander's talons clicked against the steel railing as he leaned closer. "A simulation. Jungle terrain. One of ours against yours." Then he paused, his grin widening, revealing teeth like knives. "No, not one of ours. A full squad of Dominion shock troopers against your SEAL. We will make it fair. We will let him run before we crush him." Gasps rose from the Earth delegation, but Cole's expression never changed. His jaw tightened once, just enough for Lee to notice, then relaxed again. He gave a single nod, a motion so small it might have been mistaken for breathing. "Agreed," the ambassador said, though his voice cracked slightly as the words left him. The Dominion soldiers laughed once more, but this time it carried an edge of hunger. They believed the outcome already decided. To them, the jungle was merely another battlefield, and no battlefield had ever resisted their march. They did not see the trap that had been set, not by Lee, not by Earth, but by their own arrogance. Cole's silence followed them from the chamber, clinging like a shadow to their mockery. He walked without flourish, without bravado, each step measured, each movement controlled. He had heard the insults, the ridicule, the disbelief. None of it mattered. He had been underestimated his entire career by enemies and allies alike, and every time he had turned that underestimation into a weapon sharper than any blade. When they reached the transport bay, the glass stretched wide to reveal Earth below. The planet hung like a jewel, blue and green, fragile and fierce. Cole's eyes fixed on it, on the jungles that sprawled across continents. He had trained in them, bled in them, nearly died in them. To him, the jungle was not an obstacle. It was home. Ambassador Lee touched his arm before he boarded. They think this is a game. They don't understand what you are, what you represent. Cole finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly, like the sound of boots on wet stone. They will. The ambassador nodded, relief flooding his features at the simple certainty in those words. He stepped back as the transport hatch sealed, carrying Cole toward the simulation chamber where the test would begin. On the Dominion side, soldiers boasted and wagered, betting how long the human would last. Minutes, perhaps an hour if fortune favored him. None of them considered the possibility of failure. To fail would be unthinkable. Yet in the silence of the chamber, where the jungle program loaded and the scent of wet earth filled the air, Jackson Cole crouched low and touched the ground with his fingertips. His lips curved into something almost like a smile. He was not entering their test. They were entering his. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The Dominion squad checked their weapons, plasma rifles humming, armor hissing with power. 7, 6, 5. Cole slowed his breathing, every inhale measured, every exhale steady, heart settling into the rhythm he had trained for all his life. 4, 3, 2. He closed his eyes, already picturing the terrain, the vines, the mud, the shadows. 1. The jungle roared to life. Cole melted into it like smoke into air. The hunt had begun. The jungle greeted them with a suffocating embrace, thick air heavy with moisture, the canopy overhead strangling sunlight into shards of pale gold. Alien boots sank into sodden ground, every step accompanied by the hiss of vapor rising from their heated armor. The Dominion squad moved as they had been trained, in formation, weapons raised, visors scanning for movement. Their commander's guttural orders kept them rigid, their discipline a fortress against unease. Yet already, their breathing was heavier than it should have been, the humid weight pressing into their lungs. The jungle was not built for them. It was built for something smaller, quieter, patient enough to wait until the moment came. Jackson Cole was already gone from their sight. He had not run. Running left trails, noise, weakness. He had simply dissolved into the green. His boots kissed the ground without leaving prints, his rifle cradled close, his skin slicked with mud to break his shape into the foliage. Every breath was measured, each motion calculated. To him, the jungle was not hostile. It was an ally. Its rivers whispered routes. Its branches offered concealment. Its creatures masked his sound. He had lived this world in 100 different terrains across the globe. His body remembered what survival demanded before thought even caught up. The aliens pushed deeper, muttering through calms that flickered with static as dampness chewed at their advanced systems. Cole heard them clearly, their voices too loud, too sure of their strength. They did not know how sound carried in the jungle, how a whisper could stretch like a scream to ears trained to find it. He marked their numbers, 8, heavily armed, armor gleaming wet. They were predators in their own right, but predators blind to the ground beneath their feet. The first strike was not a bullet. It was silence turned into fear. One trooper stepped where Cole had coiled a vine, his weight triggering the mechanism. A branch whipped down with bone-cracking force, smashing into the alien's helmet, snapping his head sideways. The soldier staggered, his weapon clattering into the mud. Before he could cry out, a blade slid through the gap beneath his arm. Cole's hand was steady, his motion efficient, his target precise. The alien's body sagged noiselessly, caught by thick leaves, hidden before the squad turned. They noticed his absence too late. Shouts erupted, weapons firing plasma into foliage that hissed and steamed but revealed nothing. Cole had already circled them, slipping through underbrush, his body pressed so low he became indistinguishable from the terrain. He marked the commander's posture, the nervous glances, the growing cracks in discipline. Fear, like rot, spread faster than logic. Another soldier fell to a pit Cole had carved in the earth, its bottom lined with sharpened stakes disguised by mud. His scream echoed before it was cut short. The squad pulled tighter together now, forming a defensive knot, their weapons pointing outward into shadows that yielded nothing but dripping leaves. Sweat rolled down their scaled faces beneath helmets, their armor heavy as anchors in the humid air. The jungle pressed closer, as if conspiring with the human who hunted within it. Cole never rushed. He let time work against them, the heat gnawing at their endurance, their water supplies dwindling. Every sound became a threat, a snapping twig, a bird's call, the rush of a nearby stream. Their nerves frayed until one fired wildly at a shadow. The burst lit up the trees with sizzling light, but when the smoke cleared, nothing remained but a charred stump. The commander cursed, furious at his soldiers' loss of control. Yet fear was no longer something he could contain. Cole whispered through his radio, his voice distorted but recognizable. He mimicked their language, a low growl that slithered into their ears. "I see you." The words cracked through their calms, uninvited and inescapable. Heads whipped around, weapons raised against nothing. Cole crouched high in a tree, watching their panic, watching discipline collapse under the weight of unseen eyes. He let silence return before whispering again, one by one. The commander tried to rally them, barking orders, demanding calm. But his men looked at the shadows more than they looked at him. They were not in formation anymore. They were prey trying to convince themselves they remained hunters. Cole dropped from the tree, his boots striking one soldier's back. His knife punched between armor plates, quick and final. By the time the others turned, he had vanished again, leaving nothing but the body slumped against roots. Their shots cut swaths of destruction through the foliage, but Cole had already melted deeper into the mist curling from a nearby waterfall. The roaring water masked his movements, the spray disguising his heat signature. He felt the tremors in the ground before they did, the way their heavy steps betrayed them long before their visors caught up. He was already behind them when they crept cautiously toward the cascade, believing they had cornered him. The waterfall sprayed white against stone, its curtain of sound deafening, disorienting. The squad clustered close, weapons raised, eyes scanning wildly. Then, in the space between beats of the water's rhythm, one soldier disappeared, dragged into the mist with a muffled cry. Panic erupted. They fired blindly, beams of plasma cutting through vapor, steam rising in clouds that blinded them further. Another vanished, his body yanked into shadows beneath the roar. The commander shouted until his voice broke, but the squad was finished. They fired on ghosts, on each other, until one slipped on wet stone and tumbled into the depths below. Cole watched them unravel, his breathing calm, his rifle still silent. Bullets were not for fear, they were for finality. Tonight, fear was his ally. Soon, only two remained, the commander and a soldier trembling so violently his weapon shook. Cole let the silence stretch, the jungle closing in like jaws. Then he whispered again, softer than the mist, "Stay low." The trembling soldier broke. He turned to flee, running into darkness that swallowed him whole. Cole let him go. Fear would finish what he had started. Now only the commander remained, chest heaving, plasma rifle clutched, so tight his claws dug furrows in its grip. He spun, searching, but the jungle offered no answers. Then, just for a heartbeat, he saw him. Human eyes gleaming through dripping leaves, unblinking, patient. Then gone again. The commander knew then, with a clarity sharper than fear, that this was not a test. It was a lesson. One human against his best had become a nightmare they could not fight. His arrogance had summoned a predator he did not understand. The mist thickened, the jungle exhaled, and the hunt was far from finished. The jungle had grown quiet, unnaturally so, as though even its creatures sensed the balance of power had shifted. Jackson Cole crouched in the shadows of a mangrove root, mud streaked across his arms and rifle, listening to the faint reverberations of distant voices. The Dominion commander had not withdrawn. Arrogance still anchored him to the fight. Cole expected nothing less. Pride was both shield and chain for enemies like these. He let the thought linger, then forced it aside. Reflection could come later. Survival demanded the present. The Dominion commander pressed deeper into the valley, his remaining soldier stumbling beside him. Their movements were jerky, punctuated by the sudden swivels of rifles, every shadow a threat. Their armor hissed with strain as humidity gnawed its circuits and servos. Even through the heavy air, Cole heard the faint crackle of malfunction in their comms. Their technology, so advanced in the vacuum of space, withered under the weight of Earth's oldest terrain. Cole's lips curved briefly. The jungle was doing half his work for him. He moved, a shift of weight, a slide of boot through mud, the kind of sound only prey would miss. The trembling soldier glanced to his left, eyes wide behind his visor, but saw nothing but dripping leaves. His weapon quivered as though alive, plasma cell whining. Cole let him walk 3 more steps before striking. The rifle's stock rose in a swift arc, smashing into the alien's helmet. The soldier staggered, a cry bursting from his throat, but Cole was already behind him. His knife found the seam in the armor, precise and unhurried, and the soldier collapsed soundlessly into the muck. The commander spun, firing a volley of plasma that ripped the air into fire. The bolts cut down ferns, shattered a tree trunk, and boiled puddles into steam. But Cole was gone before the shots even landed, his form lost in foliage. The jungle devoured evidence of his passage, branches recoiling back into place, mud smoothing over his trail. Above them, high in orbit, the Galactic Council watched the simulation unfold. Generals of the Dominion muttered in agitation, voices sharp with disbelief. Their soldiers were not supposed to falter. Yet the feed showed confusion, panic, and blood in equal measure. Ambassador Lee sat silent among them, hands clasped to hide their tremor. He wanted to speak, to explain again what humanity was, but Cole had already taken that burden. Words would be redundant. On the ground, the Dominion commander bared his teeth, frustration eating through his composure. He barked a challenge into the trees, his deep voice echoing through the valley. "Face me, human. Enough cowardice. Fight as a warrior, not a ghost." Cole lay flat in a ditch, face painted in mud, eyes narrowed. He considered the demand. To answer directly would be suicide. To ignore it would deepen the commander's anger, and anger cracked judgment. He slid forward, rifle resting on the edge of the ditch. His finger squeezed once. The shot rang sharp and clean, a single round tearing through the commander's shoulder plate. Armor split, sparks arcing outward. The commander roared in pain, staggering but did not fall. Cole had not meant to kill him. Not yet. The Dominion leader clutched his wound, rage searing hotter than pain. He fired into the ditch, plasma carving the earth into molten glass. Cole had already shifted, moving low, never still long enough to be pinned. He heard the commander's breath grow ragged, the edge of fatigue cutting through his fury. Every movement of the alien's massive frame cost more now, each step a battle against exhaustion and gravity. Cole let him burn himself out. Then, without warning, the simulation shifted. The council had expanded the test, deploying another squad into the jungle. 8 more Dominion troopers landed in formation, armor gleaming wet, rifles humming with fresh charge. They spread through the trees with methodical precision, their orders clear: crush the human, end the humiliation. Cole crouched in silence as the jungle quaked under their arrival. 1 man against 9 would have been challenge enough. 1 man against a full-second squad was suicide. Yet there was no hesitation in him, no thought of retreat. He had been trained for scenarios without escape, trained to think not in odds but in opportunities. He scanned their movement, the way their armor caught light, the gaps between their overlapping arcs of fire. Weaknesses always existed. It was a matter of patience and the right spark. He pulled a small explosive from his pack, no larger than a fist, its casing smeared with mud. He wedged it beneath a tangle of roots where water pooled, then withdrew into the undergrowth. When the first alien stepped across, the detonation tore through the ground, roots whipping upward like spears. Armor cracked, and 2 soldiers fell screaming into the mud. The others scattered instinctively, breaking their formation. That was the opening. Cole moved like a shadow among them, firing once, twice, never wasting a bullet. He ducked low, rolled through vines, rose behind a soldier to slit his throat before vanishing again. Panic flared across the squad, their comms choking on shouts, their rifles scorching the jungle in wild arcs. But every burst of fire only gave away their positions. Cole hunted through their chaos, turning their discipline into dust. In orbit, the Dominion generals shouted over each other, demanding explanations, demanding new parameters. Some insisted the simulation be halted, that the test had become dishonorable. But Sorek silenced them with a growl. His pride refused retreat. His soldiers would endure or they would die. Either way, Earth would be measured. Back in the jungle, smoke hung low, mingling with mist, the air thick with the copper tang of blood. Cole's body ached, sweat dripped into his eyes, but his breathing remained steady. Fatigue was a companion he knew well, and he welcomed it like an old enemy whose tactics he had mastered. He pressed forward, eyes on the dwindling squad. Four remained, clustered tight, fear dripping from every movement. He set another trap, crude but effective, rigging a plasma rifle stripped from corpse. When triggered, it erupted in a chain of blasts that shredded foliage and dropped 2 more soldiers. The survivors stumbled back, weapons shaking, their courage gone. Cole didn't rush the kill. He circled, slow, letting their fear reach its peak. One raised his weapon and screamed into the trees, voice cracking. Cole shot him clean through the visor. Only the commander remained, his armor scorched, his body bleeding. He stood surrounded by the wreckage of his men. His breath came in ragged heaves, yet his pride kept him upright. He bellowed again into the trees, voice shaking with fury and desperation. "Come out. Face me with honor." Cole stepped from the shadows at last, mud dripping from his gear, rifle lowered but ready. He met the commander's gaze without flinching, without words. For the first time, they stood in clear sight of each other, predator and survivor, pride and patience. The jungle held its breath around them, waiting for the final clash. The commander lifted his weapon, defiant despite the tremor in his arm. Cole tilted his head slightly, as if studying him, then raised his rifle in return. For a heartbeat, silence reigned, 2 warriors bound by a moment of inevitable violence. Then the jungle screamed with gunfire. The air split with the thunder of gunfire, plasma bolts and rifle rounds colliding in a storm of light. The commander roared as he charged forward, firing wildly, each shot scorching the trunks of ancient trees, exploding vines into ribbons. Cole moved the instant the first shot rang out, his body flowing with trained precision. He dropped low, rolled across the mud, and fired 2 control bursts. One struck the alien's shoulder, widening the wound already carved there. The second ricocheted off reinforced plating, useless but enough to unbalance his opponent's charge. The commander swung a massive arm, claws tearing through branches as he closed the gap. Cole barely slipped aside, mud spraying as the blow cratered the ground where he had crouched moments earlier. The sheer strength behind it reminded him of the weight difference, the scale of the challenge. One direct hit would break him, but brute force had never been his way. His strength lay in reading the angles, in staying alive long enough to make the right moment count. They circled each other in the clearing, the jungle watching in silence. Mist curled around their legs, the roar of the waterfall behind them adding a constant thunder. The commander bared his fangs, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. His pride burned brighter than his pain, the belief that even now he could not fall to a human. Cole let him believe it. Pride was a weakness he could sharpen into a weapon. The alien lunged again, plasma rifle swinging like a club. Cole ducked beneath it, feeling the heat of the core scorch the air above his head. He slammed his shoulder into the commander's torso, forcing him back a step, then drove his knife upward. The blade skittered against armor plating, sparks flying, before it found a seam beneath the ribs. The commander howled, twisting, and his massive hand closed around Cole's arm. With a violent motion, he hurled him across the clearing. Cole hit the ground hard, the impact knocking air from his lungs. He rolled instinctively, just in time to avoid a plasma bolt that turned earth into molten glass where his chest had been. Pain flared across his ribs, but pain was nothing new. He rose slowly, mud dripping from his face, eyes fixed on his enemy. The commander stomped closer, savoring what he believed was the final act. "Die knowing you are nothing," the alien spat, his voice guttural, thick with blood. Cole wiped mud from his mouth with the back of his hand. His voice was steady, low, unyielding. "I'm the reason you'll remember Earth." The commander snarled, raising his weapon. But Cole moved first. He slid into the muck, deliberately low, letting his opponent's size work against him. The plasma rifle swung down, heavy and too slow, while Cole surged upward into his blind spot. He jammed his knife into the wounded shoulder, twisting. The alien bellowed in agony, dropping the weapon as sparks burst from damaged armor. They grappled now, body against body, the fight raw and primal. The commander's claws raked across Cole's vest, tearing fabric and skin. Cole answered with an elbow to the throat, a knee driven into exposed flesh. They crashed against a tree, its bark shattering under the force. The jungle swallowed their grunts and roars, an ancient arena for the struggle of predator against predator. Cole's strength was fading, his body screaming from impact, but his mind remained sharp. He shifted his weight, letting the alien's momentum drive him forward, then pivoted. The commander stumbled into the waterfall's edge, momentarily blinded by spray. Cole seized the opening, wrenching a plasma blade from the alien's belt and driving it upward. The weapon hissed, searing through armor, cauterizing as it cut. The commander froze, eyes wide, before staggering back. Cole stepped away, chest heaving, every muscle trembling with exhaustion. He could finish it now. A bullet, a final strike, and the commander would fall. But he did not move. He let the alien collapse to one knee, clutching the wound, pride stripped away at last. Cole lowered his rifle slowly, voice carrying through the roar of water. "Now you know why we stay low," he said, each word deliberate, sharp as steel. "You never see us coming." The commander's gaze met his, filled not with hate, but with something heavier. Recognition. He bowed his head once, a gesture of reluctant respect, before slumping to the ground unconscious. The jungle faded. Trees dissolved into data. Mist melted into light. The simulation chamber's walls reformed around them, sterile and bright. Silence stretched through the assembly of Dominion generals as they absorbed what they had witnessed. Their finest had been undone by one human, a soldier who had turned their certainty into ruin. Ambassador Lee stepped forward, his composure steadier now, though his voice was quiet. "You asked for proof. You have it." General Sorik's claws scraped the railing, his jaw tight. His soldiers shifted uneasily, pride wounded but not yet broken. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. What argument could survive the image of one man bringing their squads to destruction? Cole stood at the center of the chamber, mud still streaked across his face, uniform torn and stained. He did not speak. He did not raise his head in triumph. His silence was louder than any declaration, a statement of what humanity was, relentless, adaptable, unwilling to yield. Murmurs spread among the alien observers, words and languages older than Earth, but their meaning clear. Fear, respect, curiosity. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive, now stood as something far more dangerous, a species that could not be measured by numbers or strength alone. Ambassador Lee glanced at Cole, searching for some sign of triumph, some crack in the quiet facade. But Cole's eyes were steady, his expression unreadable. He had not fought for pride nor recognition. He had fought because survival demanded it, because the world behind him needed it. That was enough. The council adjourned in uneasy silence. Some left convinced humanity must be courted as allies. Others whispered of new strategies to contain them. None laughed. None dared. As the chamber emptied, Cole slung his rifle across his shoulder and walked past the Dominion generals without a glance. His boots echoed against the metal floor, each step measured, deliberate. He did not look back. The war of perception had already been won. Ambassador Lee hurried to catch up, lowering his voice as they entered the corridor. "You realize what you've just done, don't you?" Cole adjusted the strap on his weapon, his face unreadable. "Did my job." Lee exhaled, half in relief, half in awe. "They'll never underestimate us again." Cole finally looked at him, the faintest shadow of a smile tugging at his lips. They shouldn't have in the first place. They stepped into the docking bay, where Earth's flag hung against the cold steel walls, a small symbol in a vast galaxy. Cole paused, eyes flicking to it, then turned toward the waiting shuttle. The weight of what had been proven lingered in the air. Humans were fragile compared to the empires around them. Yet within that fragility lay something unbreakable. As the hatch closed and the engines rumbled to life, Cole leaned back in his seat, eyes heavy but unyielding. He knew this was not the end. The galaxy would test humanity again. But the seed of respect had been planted in fear, and from it would grow a truth the stars could not ignore. Never underestimate a human.